I'm Juan Tracy Cherry, and I want to thank all my new subscribers from the solar eclipse and 12 signs video, as well as those of you. I really appreciate you putting the times each individual sign was starting in the recording. This time I'm talking about Jupiter in the solar eclipse. Jupiter goes stationary retrograde on Wednesday, October 9th, and he will be until February 4th, 2025. It's 108 days. Just, if you know anything about Hindu, yoga, whatever, 108 is a pretty important number. Where he goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini. The transpersonal trans, let's get beyond the duality. Yeah, Gemini can be all about good and evil, black and white, because it's a mental air sign. So if expansive, holistic, let's see the big picture Jupiter goes retrograde and is in the sign of let's keep things dualistic Gemini, what does that mean for the rest of us? Well, let's start with the air element, the element of humanity. We're seeking our humanity. How do we embody our humanity? And that's a relationship that I talk about with our raw material. There's a channel there, there's a website, and there's an astrological connection with our raw material and astrology called Astro.end. But let's get right to it. And that Gemini with Jupiter starting in May of 24 and going into about May of 25, this retrograde 108-day cycle suggests that the self-criticism ends now. Yes, you air signs, the architects, the mind loses its innocence when? When did you start to question authority? When did you start to cynically analyze and intellectualize and believe in your separateness from cosmic consciousness? The Tao, God, Christ conscious, however you want to term it. But when did you leave the whole picture? Now, we can get into the Garden of Eden and the knowledge of the tree of good and evil and all of those allegorical stories. But you Geminis, and then extending to the Librans and the Aquarians. Yeah, it's not going to be as easy to separate the energy of each 12 signs because one of my intentions is not only innocence, but the other intention is for you to see the us, the we. And Jupiter slowing down in Gemini says, how do we integrate the left hemisphere of intellect with the soulful wholeness is the goalness, thank you, Devish, of the right hemisphere? Yeah. So, Libra, how does Jupiter and Gemini? Well, with the solar eclipse in your sign, and then this lunar one coming up next week, the integration of Gemini is really about how do you do ethics? How are you listening to your conscience? How are you understanding your relationship between being investigator as well as being the person who sets the tone or the language for all new relationships, Libra? And with your cohort Gemini, what you're here to do for both of us, for all of us, excuse me, is to understand that seeking is more of a yang ego, outward external validation principle, and finding or accessing our inner truth is more of a yin. And when we understand that seeking ego esoteric knowledge, hello, to accessing the inner truth, the inner wisdom, and giving it time to fully be embodied. And when we're able to transcend that, get beyond the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, the intellect, then we're able to see our relationships in a beautiful, ambiguous context. Ambiguous from the ego intellect side, but from the intelligence of our soul, nah, we understand the lessons that everything happens for our evolution. Which brings us to Aquarius, the transpersonal, the third air sign that indicates the ability to not necessarily worry. Don't you worry about a thing. Hello, Stevie Wonder, made famous by even more famous by Olivia Pope in Scandal. Anyway, I digress. As Aquarians, I want to do. A lot of times their genius is perceived as ADHD. I can get into what you do or not do with the medical system, but what I want you to understand is that Aquarius being a concentrated air sign, with the eclipses being in Aries and Libra, the more that Aquarius leans into its inventive communication and uses the mind as kind of a research tool for everyone. All for one, one for all. And this Jupiter stationary retrograde is going to go direct in your sign in early February. The eyes of spring, if we're talking about the next Chinese New Year of the snake. So, what Aquarians learn from Gemini is how to stay in the moment, not to be those big headed, know it all historians or the futuristic where they're telling you what's going to happen. Because God, can you do worst case scenarios like no one else? So Gemini says, hey, we've got $300. Let's get some bottle service and let's take off our shoes and have a fucking good time. So what happens with the next element, water, whereas air is our architect of our mind, water is the love, the soul, the union, the yearning. In Astro RM, astrology and our raw material, water represents our ocean. So both air and water are collective elements. So the water signs of Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces are here with this stationary retrograde Jupiter in Gemini in air to use their receptivity to love and to connection. If you're Cancer, you're using it as almost an expectational, but not projecting in how much a good year you're going to have next summer, but really kind of looking forward, but bringing it to the now and saying, I can live in an infinite, multidimensional universe. I can kind of anticipate that I have ancestral, angelic, invisible protection, Cancer, and that if you're sincere and humble, that's all that's needed, really. And then that is how that invisible, those so called synchronicities come to your aid. Now, Scorpio, you may not know everything, but you're suspicious about everything. And with suspicion comes ego. Let me repeat that. With suspicion, Scorpio, comes ego. And with the ego comes separation from the cosmic harmony, the really good sex, or whatever it is that you use or you feel and embody with another being. Oh, there's a soul underneath that physical exterior. That's what you say. So the Jupiter in Gemini is about these next 108 days, Scorpio, is about you allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And as a Scorpio, hey, maybe I'm telling this to my own melanated damn self. But the point is that these 108 days for you, Scorpio, is to investigate the ways in which you maybe have stayed armored, like Jupiter's favorite daughter, Athena, who just jumped out of his head fully armored. So, Pisces. Oh, the yearning for the divine, cosmic Garden of Eden connection. Beautiful. But Gemini is one of your most challenging signs. And with the eclipses being in Aries and Libra, you may be the proverbial fish out of water. So what are your lessons right now? Home, hearth, sensitivity, being clear about what you need when you are in your home environment. So make like a turtle, carry it home wherever you go. But however, I see it as if you're not looking forward to going home, or as I heard through a writing creative space, it's the garage rule. If you come home and you see your partner's car in the garage, do you want to go back to the bar? Do you want to go back to work? Or are you looking forward? Are you accepting the adaptability of your soul in order to see whatever challenges, whatever obstacles, how have you puppeteered it? How have you not been fully transparent? And so, what you may be accusing or fantasizing about your partner could exist in seed form. and you Pisces. And that goes to all you water signs and some of the air people too. So our architect as of the mind, air, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, or our ocean, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Oh, after we go to the past and our yearnings of the water, we can take a breath and go, next, let's have an adventure. And that's the fire signs of Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries. And if you notice, starting with Gemini, Leo is the closest sign if we're moving through the seasons, through Gemini, Cancer, Leo. And Leo's key phrase is I will. And they operate from the all fire element operates from the sky in astrology and our raw material. And so the Leo comes in, and yes, can you suck up all the air in the room? Of course you can. But typically that's in direct proportion to the uncomfortable nature about you showing up to the room in the first place. That's why a lot of times you would like to hold court in your own home or in familiar spaces. So this Gemini Jupiter stationary is really the time period for you to communicate really precisely about what you want and how you want to bring other people along in your adventure. So it's again an hour, it's a we, it's a us's, you know, and what I love about this cycle for you, particularly solar Leo child, is that through speaking your vulnerabilities, you can see how it becomes a cosmic, intentional dynamic that brings you gifts that you couldn't have anticipated or couldn't have expected either. Sagittarius. Now, Jupiter is one of your ruling planets, but what happens with you is that that you don't understand moderation or temperance. So the Jupiter Gemini can suggest a certain greed of wanting multiple relationships and side pieces and imagining all of the bonding that you could have. Yeah, whether you act on it or not, it really is the thought. Because remember, you're our sky of possibilities. And so you can be imagining, well, I may not get him, her, or they right now, but you may be fantasizing, hoping for in the future. So this slowdown of Jupiter in your complementary 180 degree away from sign Gemini is for you to understand the possibilities that you can imagine, whatever they may be, but to slow down and say, what kind of depth or profound experiences do I want to have? So maybe make a bucket list. And then if you're in doubt, then ask for someone's advice and not ask in that kind of puppeteer, manipulative, handling people kind of way. Oh, look how wise I am. Look how gentle I am because I'm asking and I'm showing my vulnerability. That's pretense. We don't want contrivance from you. We want you, Sash, to just be transparent about what you truly are desiring. And Aries, come on, make all types of wish lists. And wish lists in our material is pillar 7 called values and ideals. And so values are how we spend our time, and ideals represent in an ideal playground, in an ideal world, what we're wishing for, basically. If you had a genie on call or a retainer, okay, that's the lawyer part of me. What would you ask for, Aries? And do you have the requisite patience for the cosmos or the universe or the infinite verse, as I've heard earlier today, for it to manifest? Not fully on your third eye terms, because remember, seeking is more yang, the yin is more heart, accessing the wisdom that's already there. And then once Aries, once you realize that you're trans, that you're beyond the good and evil or the male, female, or the polarities, and that you can integrate them both and act when you feel aligned. What is it that you couldn't do, Aries? Not a whole lot, trust. So we've got architect as the air signs. We've got the ocean as our water signs, and then we have our sky as the fire signs, and that's the individualized element, fire and earth. So now we get to the earth people, which represent our gardener. Yes, they can sometimes seem like police people. They're going to tell you what isn't possible. But if you realize that the earth element is most attuned, particularly if your moon is in an earth element or the south node of the moon is in Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn. You came into a genetic principle or genetic line to be attuned with Gaia, to be attuned with the embodiment and the limits of the physical world. That's why when an earth sign tells me about food, tells me about money or work or anything physical, I listen for a living. So I listen anyway. But I kind of tune up it a little bit. So if I'm running at a really good 75, 80% of receptive ear hearing, which is yin and soulful, is Kuan Yin after all. Then with an earth, I add about a good 5 to 7 or maybe 10% of that. I tweak it a little bit. So this stationary retrograde energy of Jupiter in the earth element represents the gardening of our resources. And for the Virgo being another Mercury ruled sign, Gemini represents your Google house, your 10th house of professional reputation, how people talk about you, and talking about you behind your back. That's where we get into the difference between gossip, which, we're just talking about Taylor Swift and Travis, and we don't give a fuck about them. That's why celebrities are so easy to kind of rip up and rip apart. But when we're processing, we're still talking about people who are not there. And before you get that twisted, because there are some warriors out there that you can't talk about me behind you and you didn't defend me. Oh, please. That's so ego, warrior, insecure. That's a whole nother. You just need to come in for a session because we need to deconstruct some shit. The point is that if when we are all transparent, take a breath, because the earth and fire element are more likely to get into those ego attachments I just described, which causes conflict in relationship because you're getting people to defend you. Well, the truth don't need no goddamn defense. That's a lawyer, and that's my metaphysical heart too. So the truth of you, Virgo, is that no, you are a perfectionist about the process. And this Jupiter and Gemini retrograde is about you looking over the past 3 or 4 months and understanding that one of your gifts right now is for you to take the leap into the mysteries, take the leap into the unknown. And I'm not saying a leap of faith in terms of blind faith, a leap of faith based on your experiences about when things have worked out for you, not when they don't work out, not when you lean into your doubt or just lean into hope, which has a seed of doubt, where you pause and you do the inquiry about what you want to anticipate will be your next stage as we reach next spring, Virgo. Okay? Oh, Capricorn. Mm, mm, mm. Going up that mountain. And the Gemini energy is your child to your old wise person. Whether you're a viejo, a vieja, old man, old woman, whether you feel like the crone or the hag or whatever. Capricorn, it's about leaning into really accepting the youthful, innocent curiosity that the mind can bring. No agendas. I know it's so difficult for you not to go into agenda like thinking. But when you pause, Capricorn, and you breathe and you allow yourself to feel the abundance, not the avoidance. We want you to embrace your fear, to embrace your shadows, to embrace your doubt, and integrate them, and to feel that it's not work. And please, Capricorn, allow this stationary retrograde Jupiter and this retrograde Jupiter over these next 100 days to erase the phrase, no pain, no gain. How about all joy all the time, Capricorn? Try it. Look at your inner resources and access that. And gardener energy is about what seeds you plant, what intangible assets you really look for. And certainly last but never, ever least, being a product of, two Taurus parents and have a Taurus son. Taurus, you're here to understand that this Gemini cycle of Jupiter is how have you been managing your resources. hmm Yes, is there a side hustle going on, or is there another income stream that you've been developing for the past, 4, 5, 6 months? And if it hasn't manifested, then let's continue with the gardening metaphor. That have you planted the seeds? Have you watered? Have you put enough illumination and networking sunlight on them? If not, why not? And if you're an early Taurus, realize that Pluto, the purveyor of collective fear, is going to return to early Aquarius on November 19th. And so you early Taurus, the April 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, those people, just realize that the more that you access that inner collective ancestral fear, yeah, let's breathe that through. Your individualized spirit, the more you do that and transform it. Here's an analogy. Act like you've got these SOUL, scouts that go into your inner world and they access the roots of all your memories. All right? And once you do that, and one of the things that I would suggest, and if you're still here, I suggest this for all of the 12 signs, not only ourrawmaterial.com, but whether you're a morning or evening star, based on the Venus star point, the Venus Cassinis, that alignment, the heart of the sun, that Venus and the earth and the sun are in alignment, happens once every 9 months. Taurus is a child of Venus, and Jupiter being in esoterically Venus ruled Gemini. Humpty Dumpty. Resist the temptation, Taurus, to use your recreational criticism to take things and people and situations apart that you can't put back together. All right? Good listening out. And I'm welcome comments. I welcome, you know, this is my calling, people. So, um, and I love and appreciate the support that I've already had. And I'm leaning into the TikToks and the YouTubes and all of that because this, after all, is the 21st century. And there's a whole generation or generations of folk, FOLX, that I want. My intention is one of them again is not only the innocence of going on with the Jupiter Gemini energy, but also the ability for us to access our inner truth and our inner wisdom. Yes, I got boatloads of esoteric knowledge, but without it being applied through the frequency and the transparency of our hearts, no bueno. What did the Christ say? If we don't speak these truths or this good news, then the rocks would speak out. Well, I got an orange calcite sitting right next to me. And orange calcite is all about the joy inherent in the bonding that comes from our second chakras. This is Quan out.